This is Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Museum. Part 1. It is located at 18001 Yorba Linda Boulevard, Yorba Linda, California 92886. Few eras of American history are as dramatic as the times of Richard Nixon, the 37th President of the United States. Richard Nixon served as the 37th President of the United States from January 20, 1969 until August 9, 1974. Born in Yorba Linda, California on January 9, 1913, Nixon was a lawyer, a commissioned Navy officer during World War II, and a public official who was elected a U.S. Representative, U.S. Senator, Vice President, and ultimately President. Nixon's tenure in office reflected a tumultuous era that coincided with his presidency. He presided over triumphs, such as the ending of U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War and the reopening of American relations with China, and tragedies, most notably the controversial events that became known as Watergate, which resulted in Nixon's becoming the only president to resign from office. He wrote his memoirs and several other best-selling books after leaving the White House, and remained an active statesman on international relations and American foreign policy. He passed away on April 22, 1994, at the age of 81. Presidential libraries are not libraries in their usual sense. They are archives and museums preserving the written records and physical history of our presidents while providing special programs and exhibits that serve their communities. The American presidency is part of a unique heritage that is ours to explore. Through archives, museums, and special programs, presidential libraries preserve the documents and artifacts of our presidents and provide insight into the times in which these presidents lived and served the nation. There is no better place to begin to understand those years than the museum galleries and archives of the Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Museum in Yorba Linda, California, a federal facility operated by the National Archives and Records Administration. The Nixon Library's permanent gallery contains something for all ages, from an exact replica of the President's Oval Office to an extensive exhibit commemorating his historic trip to China. The museum features unique multimedia experiences, regional films, custom digital interactives, curated archival film sequences, more than 600 photographs, 8,000 square feet of wall murals, and more than 300 artifacts. The archives contains materials relating to Richard Nixon's years as president, as well as records pertaining to his pre- and post-presidential years. The collection contains 46 million pages of textual records, 6,900 sound recordings, 5,110 films, 5,650 video recordings, and 500,000 photos. Materials reviewed and processed by the archival staff are available to the public and open for research in the library's research room. It was once the location of the Nixon family's small citrus farm. The library and museum's 8.4-acre campus is jointly administered by NARA and the private Richard Nixon Foundation, which owns the site. Set among handsome gardens and fountains in northern Orange County, the campus is less than an hour from downtown Los Angeles and only minutes from Anaheim. When Richard Nixon was sworn in on January 20, 1969, he became president of a nation that was experiencing dramatic social and political upheaval. Here's a replica of President Richard Nixon's White House Oval Office. Nixon promised to bring about an honorable end to the war in Vietnam. He took action to try to jumpstart peace negotiations. President Nixon developed a multifaceted approach to ending the war. He increased military action while beginning to decrease American troop levels. He also crafted an elaborate diplomatic strategy to open and improve relations with both the People's Republic of China and the Soviet Union in order to decrease their military and monetary support for North Vietnam. On January 23, 1973, in a nationally televised Oval Office address, President Nixon announces the peace agreement will be ending America's involvement in Vietnam and securing the return of all American prisoners of war. Here's Richard Nixon's speech in his second inaugural address on January 20, 1973. He said, "Let us build a structure of peace in the world, in which the weak are as safe as the strong, in which each respects the right of the other to live by a different system, in which those who would influence others will do so by the strength of their ideas and not by the force of their arms." Nixon's promise of peace with honor. On April 30, 1970, he said, "I promise to end this war. I shall keep that promise. I promise to win a just peace. I shall keep that promise." A new vision for America. Nixon's legacy of domestic policy. His government focused on projects like Title IX, the War on Cancer, the Clean Air Act, and an all-volunteer force.
Foster Dulles refused to shake the hand of Joanne Lye.
Nixon was determined to make up for past history and set us on a brand new course.
He came out playing, as I remember, he had his hand stretched out even before he hit the bottom of the steps. Pat Nixon came down just behind him. Quite right, because she wore him in a red coat.
He was an historic moment, undeniably.
John Miles said, that handshake.
Nixon's yellow notepads. Early in his career, Richard Nixon developed the habit of writing out his thoughts on legal pads. These yellow notepads became a hallmark of Richard Nixon's way of working and thinking. Whether weighing different sides of an issue, drafting the main points of a speech, or noting down the content of conversations, Nixon honed his thinking through writing.
Absolutely. Every decision we made was over that. Most of us based on good decisions for the people. Never when I started with the judge and wanted to be a submission in the way and it's like people who had good lawyers and
President of the United States of America and Mrs. Nixon, Mr. and Mrs. David Iron, Mr. and Mrs. Edward Thomas.